Nadine Dorries is always good for a laugh, and sometimes I think she has her finger on the pulse of the story. There are, of course, other important politicians, women in history. One of them, if you remember, the system which I believe in, which finds most eloquent expression, is in the American Declaration of Independence, that the state is there to serve the liberties of the people, to develop their own talents and abilities, and so that the strong does not intimidate the weak. So it's your duty to use your talents and abilities. It's your duty to accept responsibilities. Because you accept freedom, you need private property. The property doesn't belong to the state. You have your own land, your own shares. You have thrift. You develop your own talents. That was Thatcher. Thatcher thought that it was always important to take responsibility. To take responsibility for what you do, for what you say, for who you are, and so on. I think the principle of responsibility is something that the Labour Party would also endorse. It's certainly something that I know that Farage is only too happy to talk about, and it's something that Rishi Sunak has shirked. And so we get back to Nadine Dorries, because Nadine Dorries has an analysis about what's going on at the moment, and she put it out on Twitter this morning. Rishi Sunak has cancelled all engagements for the foreseeable future. The Conservative office has announced that Rishi does not intend to stand down. You know, it's rather like saying, we have full confidence in him. You remember what Mrs. Thatcher used to say. And then a day later, the person is sacked. Rishi Sunak is on the way out. Now, the question is whether he can hold on by his fingertips during the election campaign, or whether he is literally going to resign as the election starts. Are we going to see a Rishi Sunak resignation on Monday? And are we going to see, as Nadine Dorries suggests, Cameron taking over? I don't know whether I can even dare repeat this, because it sounds like gossip of the most absurd kind. But it's there. Let me read what she's written in her Twitter, because, I'm the first to say I've read all her rubbish. I've read it all. And Nadine Dorries strikes me as an empress in terms of Twittery. But if you want information, you don't limit yourself to listening to people with sense. In Russia, there was the tradition of the holy fool. And the holy fool was often the person with the wisdom. We have it in Shakespeare as well. The fool in King Lear, for example, is not remotely funny. The fool in Shakespeare is often a character that knows exactly what's going on and has the license to speak honestly to power. And Nadine Dorries, I think, performs that job. I would like to think of Nadine Dorries jumping around with a coxcomb and imitating Ken Dodd. Ooh, I say, I've always said that Cameron was popped into the Lords and into a senior ministerial post for a reason. Oh yes, I thought maybe it was to replace Sunak at an earlier stage. Rumours around tonight that Sunak's about to fall on his sword. Ouch! There are no MPs, only ministers. If Sunak does resign, any replacement would have to come from inside ministerial ranks. You'd have to be a senior Conservative ranker. Oh dear me. Of course she's right. But it does depend on Rishi falling on his sword. And somehow I cannot imagine that that's going to happen. Just think of all the reprinting that would have to be done of Conservative Party literature. overnight. Just think of the torrent of printed verbiage that would have to be pushed out if someone else had to suddenly take over and become Prime Minister. Rishi Sunak would go down in history. like I don't know, something that is flushed away, but it would be one of those things that you flush and flush, never quite goes, and it's something you talk about, you know, in your 2-year-old way. But it is astonishing. It's an astonishing story and an interesting story. And Nadine Dorries is sitting on the pulse of the nation.